can you discuss the difficulties that arose in trying to implement the Brown decision?
Certainly, no one fooled themselves in thinking that the South was going to desegregate on a dime. And so the Supreme Court had to struggle for many years, indeed many decades, with how hard and fast to push reluctant Southern school districts and governors to implement this mandate of non-segregation. And some school districts were openly defiant. Others used gimmicks to try to get around Brown. For example, they said, okay, we'll just assign children to the local neighborhood school, ignoring the fact that schools had been physically sited in black and white areas because blacks and whites hadn't been allowed to live together. So if you say kids get to go to their local neighborhood schools, you're keeping black schools blacks and white schools whites, because you've also enforced the residential segregation laws for so many decades. So it was a challenge for the federal courts, especially federal district court judges in the trenches, to try to overcome this recalcitrance. And so remedies like busing emerged, and magnet schools, and all these things are complicated because, federal judges aren't great at micromanaging local school operations.
Didn't the Brown Court insist that its ruling be implemented with, quote, all deliberate speed?
Yes. After Brown versus the board came down, there was a second decision called Brown 2, in which the court took up this remedial question, and it ordered the segregating districts to desegregate with, quote, all deliberate speed. But the phrase all deliberate speed is itself borderline oxymoronic. Deliberate means slow and careful, and speed means fast. So it was a recognition of the difficulty that the federal courts knew they were going to confront. But I will say this, a generation after Brown, by the early 80s, when I'm graduating from high school, Brown is accepted by everyone throughout the country. This is not something that continued to divide people the way some issues have continued to divide people a generation later. Whatever you say about Brown versus the Board of Education, its fundamental correctness was recognized by people throughout the United States within a generation.